conversation I want to have with all of you tonight. And viewers, it's a very important time in our war against COVID. We told you just yesterday, we may be staring at a situation where the cases can start peaking for most of the states and in the country in the first week of September. Now, as the number of cases are peaking, and when we cross that, can we go down a road of recovery? As the number of cases go a peak, it clashes with our festival season. This is now starting tonight. A series of festivals will begin in this country, across states, different kinds of festivals over the next several months. This is usually the time we all go out together as a family, with our friends, with our close ones. We go shopping, we go visiting our family members from one home to the other. There are processions which are carried out. It's just a big festival season. Can we do that this time? Of course not. We cannot have it like any other year. But to what extent can the festivities be allowed? That's going to be one big question. Conversation on that has already begun as we prepare ourselves for Ganesh Chaturthi, which will be observed across the country. The other aspect is, should the celebration of festivals actually just be made a private affair? You can do what you want, follow the customs, the traditions, figure out a new way of doing it inside your own homes, maintain social distancing, don't step out and convert into a crowd. The third question that I want to ask is, will this test our discipline? How disciplined can we be with social distancing, with our mask and our sanitizers and our gloves during the festival time? Very, very important. I'll give you one example, and I'm going to pull up the pictures that we got from Mumbai today. From one of the most famous flower markets, fresh vegetable and fresh flower markets here in Mumbai. A day before Ganesh festival begins, look at the crowd. Just look at the crowd on the streets. This is us failing in our COVID discipline on day one of the festival season. We cannot afford to do this. Yes, we want to go out, buy the necessary ingredients required for the preparations to bring the idol home, to set up the idol at home, to host Ganpati at home. We need to figure out how we will immerse the idol without carrying out a big procession, reaching the seaside or the lakeside. We have to find those alternatives. But if we begin to let our guard down like people did in this Mumbai market today, then we are in for big trouble, viewers. Over the next 45 minutes, 1 hour, we are going to take your calls as well. You tell us how you are going to celebrate this festival, but maintain your COVID discipline. Let's set the right example tonight. Let's have a conversation of how we can do it differently and still follow our tradition, our practices, our culture, and celebrate with our loved ones. Let's find new innovative ways of doing that. Let's look at the busy calendar. Ganesh Chaturthi starts tonight, tomorrow morning. Muharram on 29th of August. Onam on 31st of August. Navratri begins from 17th of October. Durga Puja begins on 22nd of October. Dasera on 25th of October. Before Dasera, of course, you have this whole, Ram Leela that goes on across the cities of North India. People out on the streets watching it. I don't know if that will be allowed this time. Ganesh Pandals have not been allowed in most of the cities. Eid-e-Milad on 29th of October. Diwali on 14th of November. Chhat Puja on 20th of November. Christmas on 25th of December. And of course, then in January, we also have Pongal and Makar Sankranti. It's a busy festival calendar time. But it's also a time right now where we have our maximum cases. It's a tightrope to walk. How do we do that? Let's talk. Conversation. We are guests joining us right now. Rahul Eshwar, social activist. I've got Dr. Pasricha, retired DGP of Maharashtra. Dr. Dilip Malvankar, Director of the Indian Institute of Public Health and a member of the COVID Task Force in Gujarat. Saswata Basu, General Secretary for Forum for Durgotsav, and Balasaheb Kamble, President for the Lal Bagh Chauraja Committee with me this evening. बाला साहब कामले, आपसे शुरू करते हैं कि लाल बाग का जो गणेश उत्सव रहता है वो मुंबई का सबसे बड़ा, सबसे फेमस होता है, लेकिन इस बार फेस्टिविटीज़ वैसी नहीं होंगी। जब आप लोग ने ये डिसीजन लिया तो कैसे डिस्कस किया, क्या सोचा और कैसे डिसाइड किया कि इस बार क्या करेंगे?
नमस्कार। लालबाग का राजा सार्वजनिक गणेशोत्सव मंडल इस साल का ये हमारा 87th ईयर है और लास्ट 87th ईयर में ये लालबाग का राजा गणेशोत्सव मंडल का भी ये फर्स्ट निर्णय ऐसा है कि इस बार हम जो फेस्टिवल मनाने जा रहे हैं वो अलग तरह से फेस्टिवल मनाने जा रहे हैं। हम सभी जानते हैं मार्च 2020 से पूरे हिंदुस्तान में कोरोना वायरस का जो इम्पैक्ट है वो दिन ब दिन बढ़ते आ रहा है। इसमें ज़्यादा महाराष्ट्र और मुंबई में बहुत ज़्यादा इफ़ेक्ट कोरोना वायरस का है। हमारे यहाँ मुंबई में, महाराष्ट्र में बहुत ज़्यादा कोरोना वायरस के जो पेशेंट है वो बढ़ते जा रहे हैं। और ये सारा माहौल देख के मार्च महीने से हमने हमारी मीटिंग्स हो रही थी इसके बारे में। लालबाग का राजा जो लास्ट 87th ईयर से यहाँ पे गणेशोत्सव हम लोग मनाते हैं, ये लालबाग का राजा के दर्शन के लिए जो भाविक आते हैं ये दुनिया भर से लोग आते हैं। मुंबई, महाराष्ट्र से ही नहीं बल्कि पूरे हिंदुस्तान से लाखों करोड़ों भाविक यहाँ पे 10 दिन में आते हैं। बहुत ज़्यादा पैमाने में भाविकों की संख्या यहाँ पे रहती है। और कोरोना को जो वायरस का इफ़ेक्ट है वो भी जैसे आदमी की संख्या बढ़ती है वो रश के हिसाब से, भीड़ के हिसाब से उसका संसर्ग होता है। और ये सारे बात मद्देनज़र रखते हुए हमने इस बार, इस साल में एक लोक कल्याणकारी ऐसा निर्णय ले लिया। हमारे 2-3 महीने में इस पर हमारे सब कार्यकर्ताओं के साथ, हमारे जो एडवाइज़र्स हैं मंडल के, हितचिंतक है, हमारे मेंबर्स हैं, ये सारे लोगों से हमारी बातचीत हो गई। एक बार हमने हमारे एक एनुअल जनरल मीटिंग ले ली, ऑनलाइन मीटिंग ले ली। उसमें हमारे सीनियर्स लोग प्रेजेंट थे और सारे लोगों के पूरी बातचीत करते, पूरी डिस्कस करते, सबका निर्णय का एक ही निर्णय पे आ गए कि इस बार हमें बड़े दुख के साथ ये निर्णय लेना पड़ा कि लालबाग का राजा का मूर्ति की प्रतिष्ठापना यहाँ पे नहीं होनी चाहिए, क्योंकि कोरोना वायरस के वजह से लोगों को पेशेंट की संख्या बढ़ती है और भाविकों की संख्या ज़्यादा है। तो यहाँ पे अगर किसी भी हाल में हम अगर गणेशोत्सव मनाते हैं तो वो कोरोना वायरस का जो फैलाव है वो फैलाव हो सकता है। और ये सारा निर्णय उसी मीटिंग में हमने तय किया। ये 30 जून को हमारी मीटिंग हुई थी और उसके बारे में अगर गणेशोत्सव नहीं करना है तो उसके बावजूद यहाँ पे आरोग्य उत्सव होगा। और ये आरोग्य उत्सव के अंदर हम लोग प्लाज्मा डोनेशन कैंप अरेंज किया है, ब्लड डोनेशन कैंप अरेंज किया है, ताकि प्लाज्मा डोनेशन की आज के ज़माने में बहुत ज़्यादा नीड है। कोरोना वायरस के जो पेशेंट है उनको अगर प्लाज्मा हम लोग डोनेट कर दे तो वो कोरोना वायरस के पेशेंट अच्छे हो जाते, तुरंत अच्छे हो जाते। तो यही एक पॉइंट हमने नज़र में के सामने रख के यहाँ पे हमने प्लाज्मा डोनेशन 3 अगस्त से स्टार्ट किया और आज हमारे यहाँ 125 प्लाज्मा डोनर्स ने अपना प्लाज्मा केईएम हॉस्पिटल में डोनेट किया हमारे मंडल की वजह से।
जी कामले जी, ये आपने बहुत अच्छा डिसीजन लिया। ये जिस दिन मैंने सुना उसी दिन मुझे लगा कि ये तो बहुत अच्छा स्टेप है। देश भर को ये पता होना चाहिए, होल कंट्री शुड नो that one of the biggest Ganpati pandals, the entire committee, they have been doing this for 70 years. This time were the first ones to announce they will not organize the grand event open to lakhs of people. Instead they will set up a donation camp, एक डोनेशन कैंप ब्लड के लिए, प्लाज्मा के लिए। ये इस साल तरीका है जो गणपति फेस्टिवल को ऑब्जर्व करने का। पर बाला साहब कामले जी, जब ये डिस्कशन चल रहा था जैसे आपने कहा, तो क्या कोई लोग थे जिन्होंने कहा कि लेकिन हम 70 साल से यही कर रहे हैं, कैसे हो सकता है इस बार नहीं करे, अच्छा नहीं लगेगा, ये तो हर साल का हमारा ट्रेडिशन है। ऐसे कोई जो लोगों ने बात उठाया तो आपने उनको कैसे समझाया?
नहीं, ठीक है, कैसे हर एक मंडल में बहुत सारे डिफरेंट थिंकिंग के लोग रहते हैं, ऐसा भी हुआ था। लेकिन उसकी जो संख्या थी वो बड़ी कम लोगों की थी। हमारे यहाँ पे मेजॉरिटी ऐसी थी कि अपने मुंबई शहर एक गर्दी का शहर है, यहाँ पे लोगों की संख्या, भाविकों की संख्या ज़्यादा रहती है। और ऐसे हालत में अगर कोरोना का फैलाव केवल गणेश फेस्टिवल के माध्यम से अगर होता है तो समाज के लिए वो अच्छा नहीं है, हमारे देश के लिए अच्छा नहीं है। तो देश की सेवा करना ही, इस समाज की सेवा करना ही बाप्पा की या भगवान की सेवा है। देश ही हमारा भगवान है, ये एक वचन हमने मन में ठान ली और वही वचन को हमने एग्जीक्यूट करने के लिए हमने ये निर्णय ले लिया। और इसके बारे में हमारे जो मंडल के सारे कार्यकर्ता हैं, हमारे जो कमेटी मेंबर्स हैं, हमारे जो सीनियर ऑफिस बेरर्स थे जो अभी हमारे जैसे सलाहकार करके मार्गदर्शक करके हमारे साथ काम करते हैं, उन्होंने भी हमारा ये निर्णय का स्वागत किया। बहुत सारे लोगों ने बोला कि हमारा निर्णय बराबर है, क्योंकि हमारे गणपति बप्पा के लिए, लालबाग के राजा के दर्शन के लिए यहाँ की जो संख्या आती है, ये 10 दिन में कम से कम 1.5 करोड़ से ज़्यादा संख्या आती है। अगर हमने गणपति बप्पा यहाँ पे बिठाते हैं तो अगर सपोज हर दिन में 15 लाख, 10 दिन में 1.5 करोड़, ये जो हमारा रेशियो है, तो दिन में अगर 1% अगर लोग आते हैं तो भी यहाँ पे कम से कम 1 या 1.5 लाख लोग आते थे। तो इसके बारे में 1.5 लाख अगर लोग आते हैं तो उसका जो रिज़ल्ट है, कोरोना का जो फैला होने का जो रिज़ल्ट होगा, वो हमारे देश के लिए, हमारे समाज के लिए अच्छा नहीं होगा। यहाँ पे कोरोना के पेशेंट बढ़ सकते थे, इसलिए सारे लोगों ने हमारे ये निर्णय के स्वागत किया, हमारे साथ रहे। जो कुछ लोग बोले कि ट्रेडिशन के बारे में, तो उनको भी बाद में ये सब पता चला कि आज के पैमाने में अभी आज का भी जो हमारा मुंबई महाराष्ट्र का जो डिजिट है, जो संख्या है कोरोना पेशेंट की, वो बहुत ज़्यादा पैमाने पर है। तो लोगों को अभी सब रियलाइज़ हो गया कि जो लालबाग का राजा गणेशोत्सव मंडल ने निर्णय ले लिया है, वो आज के ज़माने में वो सही निर्णय है। और इसके लिए बहुत सारे लोग हमारे निर्णय को अप्रिशिएट भी करते हैं।
आपके निर्णय को भी अप्रिशिएट किया और आपके निर्णय से इंस्पायर होके बहुत और भी जो पंडाल से मुंबई में और बाकी शहरों में, महाराष्ट्र में, सबने ऐसा सोचा कि हाँ, ये नहीं करना चाहिए। तो कामले जी, धन्यवाद हमारे साथ जुड़ने के लिए और मेरी शुभकामनाएं आपको गणेश चतुर्थी के अवसर पर। लेट मी गो अक्रॉस टू आवर अदर पैनलिस्ट एज वेल. This is going to be a very tricky task. Dr. Dilip Malvankar, let me come to you next. Because we've seen in the past a couple of instances which have happened where big crowds have gathered. There was an instance even in Tamil Nadu where in a market that opened up, and a lot of people flocked to that market. It led to a massive spike in cases. How do we maintain this balance during festival season? Should we just make it a completely private affair this time?
Yeah, Tanvi, thank you for inviting me on this show. I think this is very, very trying times. People have been in lockdown and under restrictions for so long. Everybody is tired, as well as a lot of people have lost jobs. So it is very obvious that we have to open up the country. But given the crowds which you just showed, just as the first day or the previous day of Ganesh Utsav, I think it is going to be very tightrope walk for the health authorities if people don't understand and flock together or come together for the festivities. Even in the homes, I think people should avoid going to each other's homes and seeing the Ganeshotsav or taking darshan of Ganesh, which is also a tradition in Maharashtra and many other places. So not only congregating in the public places, even in house congregation happens because relatives comes, others come. So if this happens, lot of spread might happen. One thing to remember is it is not the only cases, but 40 to 80% of the cases or infected people are asymptomatic or pre-symptomatic before any symptoms develop. So they feel completely all right. They don't think themselves as sick, but still they can spread. So I think we have to be very, very careful, and the initiative your TV channel has taken, I think, needs complimenting, and people have to think that this is once in 100-year, whatever we want to say, opportunity or loss of opportunity. We have to forego the community festivals in this time.
Okay, let me take our viewers through what is happening in various cities. What are the SOPs? And I'll start with Mumbai because I'm a little biased towards the city where I live in. But in Mumbai, the SOP for Ganesh Chaturthi says no permission for processions. 167 artificial ponds have been created for immersion. In containment zones, the immersions have to be within your own society. You cannot step out individually or in groups for that. Ganesh Idol Center to be set up by civic body. People need to hand over their bigger idols to BMC, to the civic body for immersion. They themselves can't go even to the natural bodies that have been identified in and around the city. It will have to be given to the civic body. 7 to 8 collection centers for this reason have been set up in each ward. In each civic body ward, these collection centers have been put in place. Ganesh idols can only be up to 4 feet, because you don't want it to be a challenge for the civic body as well. So you need to keep this in mind. Time slot for Visarjan has to be booked. This is the detailed setup. Of course, most people in Mumbai already know about it, but perhaps this could be something that we keep in mind through the next 10 days and when similar festivals happen across the other parts of the country. Meanwhile, let's take a see. In Delhi, processions are not allowed. Pandal puja is not allowed. Idol immersion not allowed. Prayers and celebrations only at home. And fine up to 50,000 on violation. In Karnataka, they're a little bit more lenient. Festivals in temples allowed. On streets with few people, yes. One idol per ward. Up to 20 people allowed to gather. Height of the idol allowed to be up to 4 feet. You will have to immerse your idols at home. And mask and social distancing is mandatory. In Tamil Nadu, they had a ban on absolutely all of it, but the Madras High Court has said, well, you can have your idols at home, but you will not be allowed to go to public places for immersion. So that's not happening. That ban by the government stays. Bringing in our other panelists right now, and Rahul Eshwar, let's start with you. There are many who say, well, if you can open up the economy, then why can't you open up, religious places and temples, especially in the festival season? What's your view?
Of course, as a believer, as a practicing Hindu, as a practicing believer who respects every faith, this should be open. Your channel should be appreciated for that balanced approach. See, we need a two-handed approach in this. With one hand, we have to uphold what the scientists, the doctors, the government is saying. On the other hand, we have to uphold our culture, our tradition, our values, our faith, or any kind of a celebration. So it's a very tricky tightrope walk. We have to have that balanced approach. Even Supreme Court, which earlier stopped Puri Jagannath Rath Yatra, later came around and said, if you follow all these standard operating procedures, you can go ahead with it. See, this is the only possible way we can go ahead. I'm a practicing believer. Of course, I'm a very passionate and emotional about all these festivals. But even as a believer, I believe I would have to listen to the words of doctors, scientists, our government, our health professionals, so that everything can go together. Anyway, we have to co-live with COVID and we have to survive COVID. We have to definitely open an economy, otherwise people will be starving to death. So we need to have a sensitive, striking balance between celebrating our festival, opening up our economy, at the same point of time having all the health concerns. Especially this kind of discussions will definitely help and educate public so that they will also maintain that sensitive balance. And we will be reminded that caution is the way ahead. Mask, sanitation, and washing of the hands and social distancing is very important. Even educated people will forget social distancing once the festivity mood comes in, including me. So once in a while, this kind of gentle reminders will definitely persuade people to have more caution, more precaution, and yet celebrate our festival in a moderate, limited way, in the hope that we will celebrate it much more dhoom-dham in the coming years when we could defeat COVID in a much more deeper way.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. But look at the visuals that we got today, and it's just the beginning of the festival season, Rahul. Sometimes I feel that we as people just lack that kind discipline, and we worked and we followed the rules so beautifully in the first few months. But now it seems that even if the cases are increasing and peaking, we are taking things lightly. What happened in this market in Mumbai today? Mumbai as a city can't afford it. I don't think any of the cities right now can afford it. Do we have that kind of discipline, especially during festival season?
I'm a proud Indian, I'm a die-hard patriot, but at the same point of time, we should be mindful of our own weakness. We as a people and we as a civilization, we have issues with obeying authority, respect towards authority, or having
Don't
discipline.
worry, Rahul Eshwar. You don't have to worry. Here we are not going to question your patriotism, just if you introspect a little about how we all are as Indians.
No, no, I understood, but this is an issue we definitely do have. See, I'm not blaming the people there. Maybe I know a person like me will be there. Our families will be there. Sometimes we will forget. In Kerala, there is something called Ona Pachil or Uttrada Pachil, where we are in a rush to buy. Even the name says there is a rush to buy all these things. So we may forget some protocols. We may be in the middle of a crowd. So it is a very tight thing. I hope more police, more enforcement, more gentle reminding, and more media prominence. So that media is going to play a very crucial role. So that people are going to be reminded that they have to be very cautious, because festivals are too important, but life, health are equally or sometimes more important, because we have to survive this as one people. So I hope with the blessings of Lord Ganesha, with the blessings of all the different faith icons, we will be able to survive, and we will also be able to take care of that discipline part, especially the elder ones and the very younger children. They also should take more care and precaution. I hope and I will pray that that is the way forward.
Okay, I completely take your point. I also wanted Dr. Pasricha to come in here. Dr. Pasricha, thank you for patiently waiting. Often what happens is that when things begin to go wrong, we turn around and we question the authorities, and we ask the authorities, well, why were you not strict enough? Why didn't you implement social distancing or a lockdown norm or a containment norm more strictly? Now, will it also become a very difficult task for the police force at such a time, because they're already so overstretched and exhausted with what we've seen in the last 5 months?
Well, Tanvi, you see, first is I would like to mention that religion is a very sensitive subject, and no politician, no administration can, betray the aspirations and expectations of the public. So there are some issues. So when they take some decisions, they have to keep everything in mind. As the police is concerned, there is no issue. We are used to this system. There is a blueprint, and we can always handle any situation anyway. I remember when I was a young traffic chief in the late 70s, early 80s. That time, the entire Ganpati of Mumbai, which is the largest in the world, that was about 40, 50 lakh people used to come on roads, and the whole thing, was around traffic management. But after the bomb blast in 1993, the entire scenario changed. Traffic management became security management. And today, with this crisis that we are facing, well, I'm glad that a lot of people have taken a very intelligent call collectively. And I must appreciate the efforts of the Ganpati Mandals of Mumbai, especially because they have a lot of stake, the public expectations, and especially the Lal Bagh Ka Raja, which is the most venerated Ganpati, and they decided not to install this year. I must appreciate, and the government has taken a decision that no procession will be allowed. Only Ganpati can go with family of 10 maximum, and they have also created artificial ponds. Well, Mumbai police is capable of doing it, whatever the challenges would have been thrown. That is not an issue. The point is, I want to take the whole discussion to another level. Is the religion should be confined only within the four walls of the family, every family. Every religion is equally good. And religion only teaches you how you want to have a disciplinary protocol in life, how to lead your life, right from the birth till you leave this world. But once you are out of your house, then you are an Indian first, even I'll say human being first. So barring your family and religious shrines, religion should not be mixed up with the ground realities. So I personally feel that the administration has to strike a balance, keeping in mind the crisis. Everybody has suffered. Everybody is suffering even now. So, but it has also afforded many opportunities. Now we can look inwards. The togetherness of family. Spiritually, we are much better. So things are changing. I think the whole environment is going to change in the coming days, because the pollution it used to cause not only Ganpati, You take Ganpati, you take Durga procession, you take Eid-e-Milad, even any other procession of any religion, it does have its own if negative effects also. But of course, it binds the community. So we have to take a very, very pragmatic decision where religion should not be mixed up with other things, and we should take practical decisions. And the very fact that everybody is supporting, even during Corona, all the religious shrines have been closed for such a long time, and everybody appreciated, right from Makkah, Medina, Vatican to Balaji and Shirdi and every other, so all Gurudwaras, including Amritsar. So I think we have to be very practical, and the time has come when we have to think something much more beyond the religion, and then only the country will progress. Over.
Oh, yes, absolutely. I completely agree with what you're saying. And, unprecedented times call for unprecedented decisions as well. Perhaps a time for us to introspect and think more about how, this part of our life should be a little bit more private within our friends and family. Of course, celebrations are always welcome. But can we find other ways? And tonight the conversation is about that. Can we find other ways of actually celebrating these festivals, maintaining some of the culture and the traditions, but not ruining all our efforts that we've made in the last few months in this war against coronavirus. Cannot emphasize on that enough. Let me also see if I can go across to Saswata Basu, General Secretary for the Forum for Durgotsav, one of the biggest committees which are there in Kolkata. Coordinating with all the pandals there. Saswata, what is the plan this year? How are the protocols and rules and plans shaping up?
Very good evening. And firstly, माझ्या नाव सस्वतो वासू. मी कलकत्ता सेक्रेटरी फोरम फॉर दुर्गोत्सव. मी संपूर्ण महाराष्ट्र लोकांना गणेश चतुर्थी शुभेच्छा जाणवते. गणपती बाप्पा मोरया, मंगलमूर्ती मोरया. And secondly, I am comfortable for Hindi. Hello.
Absolutely, आप हिंदी में भी जवाब दे दीजिए.
हाँ, देखिए कलकत्ता का जो फेस्टिवल अभी भी 2 महीना बाकी है कलकत्ता का. तो हम लोग देखिए अभी कोविड-19 का जो सिचुएशन बंगाल में अभी जो है वो अभी 3,100 करीब ऐसे ही चल रहा है. और कलकत्ता में इसका कोविड-19 अभी 500 के 600 पेशेंट हो रहा है. तो हम लोग कलकत्ता का जो फोरम फॉर दुर्गोत्सव है, हम लोग का जो कलकत्ता का दुर्गा पूजा का संगठन है ये, तो हम लोग सोचे, हम लोग 17 दफा जो है हम लोग एक कानून बनाए हम लोग के लिए. फर्स्टली हम लोग बोले जो पेंडल हम लोग को जो होगा उसमें उसका हाइट हम थोड़ा लास्ट ईयर के साथ बहुत कम करने बोले. और जो आइडल जो होगा उसका भी आपको हाइट आपको 7-8 फुट का, ज्यादा से ज्यादा 9 फुट का 10 फुट का होगा. इसके बाद हम लोग जो बोले कि हम लोग का जो पेंडल, देखिए कलकत्ता का जो हम लोग होते आपका 10 दिन का पूजा होता है, ठीक है. तो 10 दिन में बहुत आदमी बहुत आते हैं कलकत्ता में पेंडल देखने के लिए. तो हम लोग बहुत दफे हम बोले, फर्स्टली जो हम बोले जो हम लोग का जो पेंडल के घुसने के लिए 25 ज्यादा से ज्यादा 25% हम लोग पेंडल के भीतर हम लोग घुसने देंगे. उसके बाद जो बैरिकेड जो होता है हम लोग का कलकत्ता का जो पेंडल के घुसने के पहले, उसमें पहले हम लोग थर्मल स्क्रीनिंग करेंगे. मास्क तो मैंडेटरी होगा, सबका पास मास्क लगाना पड़ेगा. उसके बाद सैनिटाइज करना पड़ेगा. हाथ सैनिटाइज करने के लिए हम लोग सैनिटाइजर देंगे. इसके बाद हम लोग हर पेंडल में हम लोग सैनिटाइजर टनल बनाएंगे. उसका भीतर से सब आदमी लोग को जाना पड़ेगा. इसके ऊपर भी हम लोग और कुछ बोले हम लोग का पूजा कमेटी को, जैसे माता जो पेंडल पूजा हम लोग का पूजा चालू होता है चतुर्थी से चालू होता है. चतुर्थी, पंचमी, षष्ठी, सप्तमी, अष्टमी, नवमी, दशमी, एकादशी ऐसे ही चलता है. तो उसके पहले जब पेंडल बनाने के टाइम हर डे हम लोग पेंडल एवरी डे हम लोग सैनिटाइज करेंगे. आइडल को भी सैनिटाइज करेंगे बिफोर पूजा. और पूजा का टाइम ओनली पेंडल हम लोग सैनिटाइज करेंगे. हर सुबह हम लोग करेंगे. इसलिए हम लोग वेस्ट बंगाल गवर्नमेंट को भी, वेस्ट बंगाल केएमसी को भी हम लोग बोले जो सैनिटाइज करना पड़ेगा। जो पेंडल में ज्यादा से ज्यादा बहुत भीड़ होता है, ऐसा करीब 100 से 150 तक है, उसमें हम लोग सैनिटाइज करेंगे एवरी डे। इसके बाद हम लोग जो किया है, हम लोग
पर
बोले
भीड़
देखिए
का क्या
हम लोग का
करेंगे
जो
शाश्वता जी? भीड़ का क्या करेंगे आप? सबसे बड़ा तो वही है, वो जो 10 दिन जो माहौल रहता है दुर्गा पूजा का, जब सब लोग सड़क पे होते हैं, पंडाल की लाइन में खड़े हैं, अंदर भीड़ में है, साथ में सेलिब्रेट कर रहे हैं, वो भीड़ तो अलाउड नहीं हो सकती। तो क्या प्लान है
नहीं
कि पंडाल कम करें? महाराष्ट्र में तो गणपति के पंडाल एकदम 1/3 से भी कम हो गए, वैसा क्या प्लान है आपका?
हाँ देखिए हम लोग का जो प्लान किया है, हम लोग एक बैरिकेड बनाएंगे। हर साल भी बनाते हैं, इस बार भी बैरिकेड हम लोग बनाएंगे। बैरिकेड होगा कम से कम 200 से 300 फुट का बैरिकेड होगा। वो जो बैरिकेड होगा उसको हम बैरिकेड को हम डिवाइड कर देंगे। ज्यादा से ज्यादा 20% हम लोग, वो 20 से 25% वो बैरिकेड में आएंगे, जो उसको सैनिटाइज करके थर्मल स्कैनिंग करके पहले 25 आदमी चला गया, उसके बाद 25 आदमी जब निकल जाएंगे पैंडल से, फिर 25 आदमी आएंगे। इस बार भी हम लोग एक बात बोले, कलकत्ता का जो पूजा होता है ना, शाम को टाइम ही ज्यादा से ज्यादा भीड़ होता है। इस बार हम लोग बोले जो लाइटिंग का काम हम लोग कम करेंगे, फिर सुबह से दिन से रात 24 आवर बोले सबको आने के लिए। पहले क्या था, रात में सुबह रात को 6 बजे से शाम को 6 बजे से रात को 3-4 बजे तक हम लोग का पैंडल में बहुत आदमी आते थे। इस बार हम लोग नहीं बोले, हम बोले सुबह 4 बजे से रात 12 बजे तक एवरी टाइम आप आइए। इसलिए हम लोग लाइटिंग कम करेंगे, ये बात बोले। तो लाइटिंग देखने के लिए ज्यादा से ज्यादा लोग आते हैं।
ओके
मगर देखिए हम लोग, और दूसरा बात है कलकत्ता
ओके
का जो हम लोग जो ऑर्गेनाइजर जो है, हम लोग इतना क्राउड, हम लोग बहुत क्राउड हम लोग फेस किया है। मगर इस बार कोविड-19 अलग चीज है, मगर हम लोग इसका हम लोग का एक्सपीरियंस है, जो क्राउड मैनेजमेंट हम लोग किए। एवं कलकत्ता पुलिस को भी हम बधाई देंगे इसमें। कलकत्ता पुलिस बहुत हम लोग का साथ, वेस्ट बंगाल गवर्नमेंट भी बहुत हम लोग का साथ, हम लोग का एक साथ में मिल के
नहीं,
हम
लेकिन
लोग एक क्राउड।
लेकिन शाश्वता जी वो रेगुलर टाइम का क्राउड मैनेजमेंट अलग होता है, पैंडेमिक के समय का अलग होता है। हमारे यहाँ तो अभी सारे बड़े शहरों में, छोटे शहरों में नॉर्मल मार्केट का क्राउड मैनेजमेंट नहीं हो पा रहा है पैंडेमिक के समय। आई एम गोइंग टू रिक्वेस्ट ऑल माय पैनलिस्ट, शाश्वता बासु एंड एवरीबडी एल्स, to stay on with me. I need to take a very short break and I'll come back, and then viewers will also take your calls. Malvika is on the phone line. Malvika, just hang in there for another minute. I'll be back in 60 seconds. Malvika Arora calling us from Mumbai on the phone line. Malvika, what's your view? How should we be celebrating festival this year? And do you believe that we have the discipline to follow COVID rules?
Discipline. Look, I've been a Bombayite. I'm 78 years old. I've loved this festival, Ganesh Chaturthi. But this is a very unusual time. We are in the midst of a pandemic. There's no way out except to discipline yourself. I mean, what's the point? What's the point? Where's the distancing if you go for processions and you celebrate it outside? You know, I've got murtis, Ganesh murtis in my house. I'm going to pray and I'm going to celebrate and pray to God for all the good things. And I'm going to pray for this stupid pandemic to end. And that will be a celebration. That is going to be the festival. But before that, I think we have to control ourselves. We have to have a discipline. And that's what we should do.
Okay, absolutely. I completely agree with you, and thank you for bringing about that message. I hope more people agree with you, and that's how we follow this. We cannot forget the rules. We cannot forget the discipline. Yes, we will find other ways, maybe virtual ways. The way we go about in every other year, we would have gone and visited our friends and family members and visited the Ganpati idol in their place. This time, maybe we figure out a virtual way of doing that and have virtual conversations and get-togethers. Ways can always be found The fact remains whether we have the intent to really do that. Conversation continues in 30 seconds. Stay with me. Welcome back. We're continuing with our conversation on the festival season amid a pandemic. 3 basic points that we're addressing tonight. One, do we really have the discipline, and will the festival season test India's discipline in following the COVID rules? Secondly, to what extent should the festivals really be allowed? Should the celebrations really be allowed this year in comparison to the rest of the year? And thirdly, should we actually start using and following the festivals and celebrations as a more private affair than a grand public event? Rahul Eshwar, even when the Onam celebration is done, apart from the core custom itself, there is so much more which is linked to it. There are these boat races that take place. It's a grand celebration across the state of Kerala as well. Now, while we can say that people will not be allowed to gather, and maybe a boat race event won't take place for everybody to view, how do you stop people from coming out for shopping or for visiting each other? Do you foresee that becoming a challenge unless we ourselves show the discipline?
Very true. We should ourselves show the discipline. There's a very popular message going on in Kerala. See, Onam is the only major festival in India where an Asura king called Mahabali is celebrated and his homecoming or return is celebrated. So the joke goes like even Mahabali have to be quarantined if he comes back, because that's the reality of the situation. So, the metaphoric meaning being we have to be very careful, we have to be very systematic, we have to have that caution inside of our mind, and we have to survive this together. As you know, this is Pookalam, what you're seeing on screen, what you're showing on screen. Every religion, every caste, every group comes together, and you have Vallankali, or you have the boat races, you have many kind of Onam festivities. We have to definitely tone it down. We have to definitely have social distancing. Everything has to be muted, and that kind of a awareness has to be instilled. It's very sad, because every community and every person in Kerala has a very nostalgic thing about Onam, because we have grown up celebrating it. At the same point of time, that caution should be there. That's the only way to go. Even Kerala was successful in flattening curve at the earlier stages. Right now, the cases are touching 2,000, and the health minister went on to say that it may even go up to 10,000 per day. So we can't do anything, but we have to wait, and the Shabarimala season will come after that. Attigal Pongala will come after that, where lakhs and millions converge. So hopefully everything has to be toned down. Maybe we can use digital ways a bit more. Of course, the on-ground feel, we can't have it. At the same point of time, desperate times calls for desperate measures, and in extraordinary times, we have to have extraordinary measures. That realization should definitely come in. Then we have things like December 25, Christmas, the New Year parties are there. So everything we have to give a miss to everything. Hopefully by 2021, we can celebrate all these things in a much more vigor, much more deeper, and much more profound manner. Taking a revenge on COVID, we may be celebrating 2021 in a bigger manner. But that sense of discipline, that sense of realism should trickle in. Otherwise, we are in for big trouble.
Okay, I take your point. In fact, let me ask Dr. Malvankar if he wants to come in on this. Dr. Malvankar, the regulation part of it, we can set in the rules, but implementation, to what extent is it really possible in festival times?
Yeah. Tanvi, it is very difficult to implement many rules, partly because what we see as numbers on the newspapers don't really strike a chord in many people's minds. So one of the suggestions was, of course, enforcement is important and rules are important. But through the channels, if we can show the people who have suffered through COVID, those who were on ventilator and have come off, and their experience, I think that will sort of clarify that how serious this disease is and what may happen to you. Sometimes what happens is when you hear that somebody else has got the disease, it doesn't strike. But when you see a case, when you hear somebody in your family has been affected, then it feels that, okay, everybody is vulnerable. So in that sense, it is a time to understand the gravity of the potential threat. Not everybody will get infected, but many people may get infected. And there have been super spreading events in the past, as you said, in the markets, in some other enclosed places. And this will be the time. And many states are still in the upswing part of the epidemic. So it's not that it is coming down. In many places, it is still going up. So if you have to go, I would even say that wear
Yes.
double mask. Take personal precautions, be away from everybody. You can see the god, you can, and as the sir said from West Bengal, keep social distancing, enter the pandal at the times where there are less number of people. Maybe after coming back, wash your hands properly, don't touch your face and mouth. All the things which we have been telling for last 5 months, you should, if you really practice, still there may be risk, but much lesser risk. Second, those people who are older, those people who have comorbidity have to be shielded, should not go at all to these places.
Welcome back. We're continuing with our conversation on the festival season amid a pandemic. 3 basic points that we're addressing tonight. One, do we really have the discipline, and will the festival season test India's discipline in following the COVID rules? Secondly, to what extent should the festivals really be allowed? Should the celebrations really be allowed this year in comparison to the rest of the year? And thirdly, should we actually start using and following the festivals and celebrations as a more private affair than a grand public event? Rahul Eshwar, even when the Onam celebration is done, apart from the core custom itself, there is so much more which is linked to it. There are these boat races that take place. It's a grand celebration across the state of Kerala as well. Now, while we can say that people will not be allowed to gather, and maybe a boat race event won't take place for everybody to view, how do you stop people from coming out for shopping or for visiting each other? Do you foresee that becoming a challenge unless we ourselves show the discipline?
Very true. We should ourselves show the discipline. There's a very popular message going on in Kerala. See, Onam is the only major festival in India where an Asura king called Mahabali is celebrated and his homecoming or return is celebrated. So the joke goes like even Mahabali have to be quarantined if he comes back, because that's the reality of the situation. So, the metaphoric meaning being we have to be very careful, we have to be very systematic, we have to have that caution inside of our mind, and we have to survive this together. As you know, this is Pookalam, what you're seeing on screen, what you're showing on screen. Every religion, every caste, every group comes together, and you have Vallankali, or you have the boat races, you have many kind of Onam festivities. We have to definitely tone it down, we have to definitely have social distancing, everything has to be muted, and that kind of a awareness has to be instilled. It's very sad, because every community and every person in Kerala has a very nostalgic thing about Onam, because we have grown up celebrating it. At the same point of time, that caution should be there. That's the only way to go. Even Kerala was successful in flattening curve at the earlier stages. Right now, the cases are touching 2,000, and the health minister went on to say that it may even go up to 10,000 per day. So we can't do anything, but we have to wait, and the Shabrimala season will come after that. Attigal Pongala will come after that, where lakhs and millions converge. So hopefully everything has to be toned down. Maybe we can use digital ways a bit more. Of course, the on-ground feel, we can't have it. At the same point of time, desperate times calls for desperate measures, and in extraordinary times, we have to have extraordinary measures. That realization should definitely come in. Then we have things like December 25, Christmas, the New Year parties are there. So everything we have to give a miss to everything. Hopefully by 2021, we can celebrate all these things in a much more vigor, much more deeper, and much more profound manner. Taking a revenge on COVID, we may be celebrating 2021 in a bigger manner. But that sense of discipline, that sense of realism should trickle in. Otherwise, we are in for big trouble.
Okay, I take your point. In fact, let me ask Dr. Malvankar if he wants to come in on this. Dr. Malvankar, the regulation part of it, we can set in the rules, but implementation, to what extent is it really possible in festival times?
Yeah. Tanvi, it is very difficult to implement many rules, partly because what we see as numbers on the newspapers don't really strike a chord in many people's minds. So one of the suggestions was, of course, enforcement is important and rules are important. But through the channels, if we can show the people who have suffered through COVID, those who were on ventilator and have come off and their experience, I think that will sort of clarify that how serious this disease is and what may happen to you. Sometimes what happens is when you hear that somebody else has got the disease, it doesn't strike. But when you see a case, when you hear somebody in your family has been affected, then it feels that, okay, everybody is vulnerable. So, in that sense, it is a time to understand the gravity of the potential threat. Not everybody will get infected, but many people may get infected. And there have been super spreading events in the past, as you said, in the markets, in some other enclosed places. And this will be the time. And many states are still in the upswing part of the epidemic. So it's not that it is coming down. In many places, it is still going up. So if you have to go, I would even say that wear
Yes.
double mask. Take personal precaution, be away from everybody. You can see the god, you can, and as the sir said from West Bengal, keep social distancing, enter the pandal at the times where there are less number of people. Maybe after coming back, wash your hands properly, don't touch your face and mouth. All the things which we have been telling for last 5 months, you should, if you really practice, still there may be risk, but much lesser risk. Second, those people who are older, those people who have comorbidity have to be shielded, should not go at all to these places. If there are young people who go, maybe social distancing in the house, which is called reverse quarantine, we should practice, because if the old people get this disease, the mortality is 10, 15, 20 times more than younger people gain. So younger people go out, bring the disease with very mild symptoms or no symptoms, and the elderly in the home will get badly affected. So what you enjoy in the pandal, you may end up losing your parents or your very close dear relatives who have some comorbidity or at high risk. So that has to be, I think, driven in people's minds, that it is not the young people, but mostly the elderly and the comorbid people who have to be protected. And crowds have to be prevented if required by reasonable sort of education, rules, regulations, and if required by force, because this is a public health emergency. It's
Hmm.
not that we are emergency is over just because lockdown is over. So I think that is my message. Thank you.
Oh, absolutely. Thank you so much for that. And I think, people should make a note of what you're saying and try and follow that. Especially those with comorbidities have to be a lot more careful. And if they're living with other family members who do step out, then those family members should keep themselves away and quarantine themselves, even within the home, isolate themselves so they don't spread the infection. लेकिन एक बात जो मुझे अभी भी समझ में नहीं आ रही है शाश्वता बासु जी, कि क्यों नहीं कलकत्ता में भी जो बड़े पंडाल हैं वो वही करते जो मुंबई में अभी लाल बाग शाह के कमेटी ने डिसाइड किया है कि इस बार वो नहीं रखेंगे पंडाल, नहीं मूर्ति को वहाँ लाएंगे, उसके जगह पे उन्होंने डोनेशन कैंप सेटअप किया है, लोगों में अवेयरनेस फैला रहे हैं, प्लाज्मा डोनेशन और ब्लड डोनेशन कर रहे हैं, कोविड में लोगों की मदद कर रहे हैं. ऐसा नहीं हो सकता कि इस बार हम एकदम ही अलग तरीके की दुर्गा पूजा सेलिब्रेट करें?
अच्छा क्वेश्चन अब किया है श्री. हम लोग तो कोविड के लिए लास्ट 4 मंथ कलकत्ता को जितना पूजा कमेटी है वो लोग हम लोग कम कर रहा है. पहले देखिए कोरोना तो है ही हम लोग का इधर, उसके ऊपर भी हम लोग का कलकत्ता में सुनाई दे रहा है. हेलो हेलो मैडम,
हाँ
सुनाई दे रहा
बिल्कुल,
है?
बोलिए.
कलकत्ता में देखिए पहले तो कोरोना हम लोग का इधर अप्रैल महीने से चालू हुआ है, उसके बाद भी मई महीने में बंगाल में और भी एक तूफान आए थे, आपको सबको मालूम है अम्फान भी हुए थे उस टाइम, ठीक है, मई महीना में. तो कोरोना और अम्फान ये दोनों भी हम लोग का ऊपर पड़ गया था बंगाल में. तो हम लोग क्या किया, देखिए हम लोग का जो रूरल जो है उधर हम लोग फोड़मपा दुर्गोत्सव और कलकत्ता का जो दुर्गा पूजा हम लोग कमेटी जो है हम लोग बहुत दफे वो लोग को त्राण हम लोग दिए. इसके बाद भी हम लोग इस बार कलकत्ता का दुर्गा पूजो, आप जैसे बोले मुंबई में बड़ा दुर्गा पूजो दूसरा किसी से कर रहा है, तो हम लोग भी ऐसा सोचा है, हम लोग भी सोचा नहीं है, ऐसे भी हम लोग भी सोच रहा है. क्योंकि 2 महीना भी बाकी है अभी हम लोग का पूजा। देखिए पहले कलकत्ता का दुर्गा पूजा एक अलग चीज है। कलकत्ता पूजा के साथ एक बड़ा इकोनॉमी बहुत मैंने हम लोग के साथ इसके साथ एसोसिएटेड है। ये लगभग 1,50,000 करोड़ आपका कलकत्ता का दुर्गा पूजा का साथ जुड़ा है। तो हम लोग का भी ये लोग का भी सोचना पड़ेगा। देखिए कलकत्ता तो बड़ा स्टेट बड़ा आपका शहर है, मगर जो लोग हम लोग का करने के लिए आते हैं रूरल एरिया से, जैसे हम लोग का इधर कांती है, मिदनापुर है, कंटाई है, उत्तर 24 परगना है, दक्षिण 24 परगना जो डिस्ट्रिक्ट है, बहुत रूरल पर्सन हम लोग ये लोग आते हैं कलकत्ता का दुर्गा पूजा करने के। ये लोग देखिए दुर्गा पूजा बहुत छोटा बजा का दुर्गा पूजा नहीं होगा, तो ये लोग तो अभी भी देखिए कोरोना का जो चल रहा है, ये लोग तो अभी भी प्रॉब्लम में है, ये लोग और ज्यादा प्रॉब्लम में हो गया हो जाएंगे। तो हम लोग इस बार सोचे देखिए बड़ा पूजा हम लोग नहीं करेंगे,
करेक्ट।
हम छोटा छोटा बजट हम लोग छोटा कर देंगे एवं वो बजट लेके हम लोग कोरोना एवं अम्फान का माफिक हम लोग काम करेंगे। देखिए हम लोग एक काम किया, आपको सबको मालूम है कुमारटुली जो है हम लोग का जहाँ पर आइडल बनाना होता है, इसमें कुमारटुली में कम से कम दुर्गा 5,000 आइडल बनाते हैं। तो हम लोग इस बार कलकत्ता का दुर्गा पूजा जो कमेटी हम लोग कोड़म्पा दुर्गोत्सव डिसाइड किया है, हम लोग हर शिल्पी को हम लोग कुमारटुली में जितना शिल्पी है हम लोग को कैश हम लोग ये महीना का एंड में ही हम लोग को देंगे, क्योंकि देखिए लास्ट 4-5 मंथ उसका बहुत प्रॉब्लम चल रहा है। तो हम लोग ऐसा हम लोग बहुत कुछ सोचे, मगर हम
बिल्कुल।
लोग का देखिए हम लोग का तो उम्मीद है
मैं ये
कि
बता
2
दूं
महीना
आपको एक चीज, शाश्वता बासु जी, मैं एक चीज आपको बता दूं, आपको लगता है कि अभी तो 2 महीने हैं शायद इम्प्रूव हो जाएगा। इम्प्रूव अगर हो भी गया तो हम पीक केसेस से थोड़ा सा कम ही होंगे, तो ये प्रॉब्लम 1 साल तक नहीं जाने वाली एटलीस्ट। तो ये आपको अभी से मन बना के तैयारी कर लेना चाहिए कि कैसे कोविड के समय में हम नया तरीके का दुर्गा पूजा सेलिब्रेट करें। हर साल जैसा तो नहीं हो पाएगा। मैं आई विल कम बैक टू यू,
नहीं
लेट मी
जरूर
जस्ट
नहीं
ब्रिंग इन
होगी।
फ्यू ऑफ आवर व्यूअर्स। हमारे जो व्यूअर्स हैं वो भी हमें कॉल कर रहे हैं अपना व्यू देने के लिए। इनफैक्ट एक तो कोलकाता से ही है फोन लाइन पे, मिहिर सरकार इज ऑन द फोन लाइन फ्रॉम कोलकाता। गुड इवनिंग, गो अहेड प्लीज, व्हाट वुड यू लाइक टू से?
Good evening, Tanvi. What my say is whether it is a Chota Puja or Bada Puja, under no circumstances this thing can be controlled. Under no circumstances, we must control our sentiment. We know we should not throw our emotion. If we have to celebrate, we'll celebrate next year. But this year, under no circumstances, they can control the crowd. Even the social distance will not be maintained, and in the result, you will find this pandemic will flourish like anything. So we should control that. The narrative what these dignitaries are telling, it is wrong. It is very wrong. I am very much accustomed to the celebration. I too hold many of dignitary positions, but this is not at all possible to control the crowd, whether it is small sense of puja or the big sense of puja. We must control our sentiment. We should not go for the
Or at
celebration
any
this year.
time of the day also. Correct. In fact, Mr. Sarkar, it's from what I have seen of Durga Puja celebrations in Kolkata, at any time of the day, in any pandal, there is quite a bit of crowd because that's the level of enthusiasm, and people from outside also come to see it. So I don't think that regulation will be possible. I completely agree with you. Thank you for calling. I believe we also have Anand on the phone line calling us from Delhi. Good evening, Anand. Go ahead, please.
Good evening, madam. I just want to make a few points, if you give me around 2 minutes. Basically, I agree with
Sure, go ahead, please.
ex-DGP of Maharashtra, who really said the crux of it. You're first, in the family, you celebrate all your faith. Then you become a human. In the same way, what I say is that in the pandemic situation, festivities can wait. Am I true? People have to take this as a blessing to them so that they come out of corona, then they can do whatever they want after that. So, in this situation, nobody should take this as a negative point. Hello.
Oh, yes, absolutely. A point very well made. Yes, yes, Mr. Anand. Go ahead, please.
Another thing I want to say is, I was thinking about Rahul Eshwar. He was up to the point. He said that Onam is coming very now in another 10 to 15 days. And you have Dashera coming after 2 months. You have Durga Puja coming in another 15 days. So every festivity can wait for this year. Let every citizen of this country have the celebration at home without disturbing others. I'll
Yes,
like to thank the
absolutely.
person from Gujarat. He said that there is a pandemic situation and like the people who are vulnerable, who can have lots of morbid conditions, they are the serious people who need to be taken care. Just festivities means it's enjoyment. Enjoyment should not bring
Yes, absolutely.
suffering from the people
Yes,
in the home.
Mr. Anand, I'm glad that you've actually watched and stayed with us this entire conversation and you've noted what every single panelist has said. Thank you so much for calling a very important point. We need to keep this in mind. If you're not opening up the schools and opening up education, if you have a problem about exams being held in a current scenario, and justifiably so, if we are still figuring out how to hold a parliament session and politicians are saying, well, hold it virtually, don't call us to the parliament because we are scared for ourselves, then we need to follow the same kind of benchmark, same set of rules. We've seen that even the Puri Rath Yatra that involves usually Rahul Eshwar, thousands and lakhs of people, how it was done in a smaller manner with just 400 to 500 people, all under surveillance, all screened, distance being maintained, and everywhere else there was a curfew, literally like a curfew in Puri at that point of time. We've seen even how the Eid festival a few weeks ago was observed. So and right now it's the Paryushan Puja for the Jains. They're also not going to the temples everywhere. They're also following a different set of rules. I think every religion is setting the right example. But as we get caught up in a longer, bigger festival season that starts now and goes on till January, perhaps we will need to keep reminding ourselves about this. Rahul? Okay, unable to hear Rahul Eshwar. We're just going to try and fix that audio line and get him back. But let me just quickly also read what people online are saying. And they're actually all commending what, the Lal Bagh Raja committee member was telling us, Mr. Kamble, and the, steps that they have taken and that this should be followed. Many are actually saying that we have to ensure social distancing is maintained and festival becomes secondary. I think, Rahul, we've got your audio back. Yes, go ahead, please.
Interesting thing happened in Kerala. Kerala government gave permission for temple, churches, and mosques to open. But our mosque took the initiative to say that we don't want to open now, followed by churches and temples. And every religious institution came forward to say that even though the government is allowing for the better of the entire society, we will postpone it for some more time. We need such kind of a cultural dexterity, such kind of a flexibility in understanding and assimilating the situation. See, that's the essence of spirituality. That's the essence of our culture. That means we are strongly rooted in our tradition and values. At the same point of time, we are flexible enough and we have dexterity enough to understand and cope with the modernity and the evolving situation. That's the two-handed approach India has always said. So I believe even though these temples, the Supreme Court allowed some temples to be open, we need to have all the protocols in place. We need to understand that we are fighting a very big enemy, perhaps a situation after Second World War, or perhaps a situation in the world after 100 years that we need to fight. All the believers should come together. It is up to the believers to themselves take the initiative to say that we will keep our temple, churches, mosques, gurudwara, our vihara, everything, our synagogues, everything safe and secure, so that we can have a better equipped system to overcome this. So the flexibility from the government can be given. At the same point of time, understanding the essence and adapting to the situation, it should be very nice. And please remember, let us all remember a great scientist, Charles Darwin, who said the essence to survival is understanding and adapting and assimilating what is evolving and what is changing. So let us understand that and survive this so that we can come back and celebrate in a much more bigger dhoom-dham.
Yeah, you said, you made a very important point. Let's survive this. Let's understand and survive this. And by that, I simply don't mean being alive or not alive. But as a country, we need to emerge out of this pandemic. Emerge out of it with enough people not being, badly affected in a mental health way, about jobs, about economy, about education being badly affected. So many other issues which are there, which we need to collectively fight and ensure that we have a control on. And we can only do that if we are not suffering from an infection, if we ourselves are not in a hospital or quarantine or taking care of someone we are very close to and someone we love. So we have to keep that in mind. Very quickly, let me see if I can go across to a caller who's on the phone line with us. Gayatri is on the phone line from Mumbai. Good evening, Gayatri. The last word to you on this conversation we're having tonight. Go ahead.
Yeah, good evening, dear. See, what I would like to say is we all have faith in God, right? Irrespective of the religion which we practice. Yeah, we all believe
Absolutely.
in God. We have our faith. But country comes first. People come first. I'm sure God will also appreciate if we sit at home and don't create a nuisance for anybody. Okay? Already the health system is quite overwhelmed by the numbers. So better we pray at home and we can always have fun later next year. Okay?
Thank you so much, Gayatri, for calling and sharing that. In fact, I believe in many ways people in Maharashtra where this festival has begun, and I know more about it because I see it, I talk to people, have figured out ways of not gathering in big numbers, not taking out those processions, but still celebrating this festival in their own homes with the family members they're living with, figure out a way how they will set up the idol, immerse the idol, speak to their family members and friends, and socialize without forgetting about social distancing. So many societies have by themselves over there figured out these artificial ponds that they will use so that people don't have to step out and get out on the streets, which they can't, for idol immersion. We have to find new innovative ways to carry on the customs and traditions. They may change the face of it, they may change on how it's done, but the sentiment doesn't change, and essentially that's what matters. The sentiment is what matters. Don't forget, viewers, the infection hasn't gone away, coronavirus hasn't gone away. You can always observe and celebrate this festival next year with the same gusto that you've done all this while in your lifetime. But there are so many pandals and committees which are setting the right example now, and I think we all should take a cue from that. We cannot afford to do what happened in one of the markets in Mumbai today. This kind of crowding just will completely set us back by months together in terms of our fight against COVID. Keep that in mind, please, and have a happy festival season. Thank you for joining us.